Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Comic Source. I have a really exciting project to talk about with you today. Previously on the show, Christopher Cantwell has been on a number of times. The first time he was ever on was for a project he had at Dark Horse called She Could Fly. Absolutely amazing book. There's actually a video game out for this game now, and I have two of the central figures that are involved in that joining me today. So Sara and Kiana, do you want to, we'll start with you, Sara. I guess you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you have to do with this documentary escape game.
Sure. My name's Sara Kenney, and I'm the writer and producer of the game. And it sort of came about, a couple of years ago now, off the back of us doing in-person events at Thought Bubble Comic Con. And so we were thinking about how we pivot and do something digital, and so went to get funding, and it came out of that, really.
And you, Kiana?
Hi, my name is Kiana. I'm a lead artist of the project. I joined the team like a year ago. I was lucky enough that Sara contacted me, and I took care of all the art of the game.
So for those that haven't read it, the main character suffers from this OCD. True OCD, not the OCD that you hear like people say, oh, I'm a little OCD, whatever. Like, we're talking about the real clinical version of this disease, which can be just crippling and terrible. You have these thoughts you can't control. Oftentimes they're violent. And then in order to deal with that, you start developing rituals. And I think that's sort of this idea of rituals and what have you. That's sort of the Hollywood, if you will, OCD that people think about. When you're counting things, you have to touch a doorknob multiple times or whatever, and it's quirky, especially if you watch things like Mr. Monk, and it's quirky, it's funny. That's not what true OCD is. It is a horrible, crippling disease where people don't even get out of bed for days, weeks at a time because they just don't want to. They just can't deal with it. Basically, it's overwhelming. So it's great to shine a light on this problem. It's one of the things that Christopher Cantwell was very open with when he was writing this book about how he was kind of processing. He dealt with it, still deals with it. And I think it's important to raise the awareness. So let me ask you, Sara, you were talking about doing these events at Thought Bubble. What's kind of the impetus behind that? And then how did that affect deciding, hey, let's go ahead and do this game to help spread awareness?
Sure. So for the past 25 years, I've been working in science and health engagement. So I started working as a scientist and then in television, and it sort of evolved from that. And I wrote my first comic in 2016, and then doing the events at Thought Bubble, we explored different health arenas. So we worked with the Wicked and the Divine comic team to explore the idea, sort of what is art for? Why do we create? And we brought in experts from different backgrounds, from philosophy, from psychology, from history, to kind of look at it through different lenses. And we created this sort of immersive experiences with characters from the book. And then the year after, we looked at fear, like, why do we feel fear? What's fear about? And we explored that through the lens of The Walking Dead. And so again, we brought in different experts, and we looked at sort of the history of fear of being normal, not being normal, what happens to your gut bacteria when you get afraid, all those different sort of arenas. And with the She Could Fly game, we are really exploring a lot of the myths and misinformation around OCD. So the thing about sort of flicking switches, etc., that sort of compulsion does exist. I think it's the one that we hear about and we know about most. And there's so many different manifestations of OCD. What we wanted to explore in the game is kind of how you help people to understand more about the diversity of OCD and kind of what the changes are that the people with lived experience want to see. So the game sort of mirrors, if you like, the looping feeling that your brain does when you're experiencing OCD, and this idea that, we all have intrusive thoughts. We all get really weird, bizarre thoughts, and they've done research into this, and people with OCD don't get any more weird and extreme thoughts. It's just how they react to them. They kind of have those compulsions. And so the game, really, we brought together lived experience people, scientists, obviously artists, musicians, the game artists and Kiana, and we kind of thought together about, well, what is it about the game we want to explore, and how do we blend the comic book with the documentary clips and the game so that there's not a really big gear change between the different elements. So, you know, because my background's really science and health engagement, it was really, you want it to be fun, right? The game has to be fun. And you know, has to be an element of you wanting to play on and explore and find out more. But there's always a big other element to the projects we do, which is kind of the bottom of the iceberg, if you like, where we're looking at what policy we want to change and what impact we want to have. And so part of the process was working with people to come up. We've got 4 areas of change we want to see. So, yeah.
Gotcha. So, Kiana, obviously a big idea and an interesting idea to help spread awareness and kind of combat some of that misinformation. So when you were starting out, what made you decide to do an escape game? Give us a little bit of idea of the initial development of kind of the brainstorming aspect of the of coming up with what direction you wanted to go in.
So when Sara pitched the game to me, I was just very excited that, like, it was a very different project from what I had worked before, and like project that's dealing with mental health. And it was not just a game, so it's like a game and documentary, so it's quite different from just like a game that you play and you forget about it. So I got really interested in it, and the rest of the stuff we kind of brainstormed during the meetings with the game designers and Sara, and yeah, and it all came together.
Was there any particular challenges because it wasn't, as you said, just a game, but you were incorporating those documentary clips? Was that a little more challenging, or was it pretty seamless right from the start?
I think it was pretty seamless in some ways, but like there were parts that were challenging, like the fear monster. I think it was quite challenging to make that, because I think at the beginning it was quite abstract. So we weren't sure exactly what we want to do, so we did a lot of iterations on that. Yeah, sorry.
That's right. And I think what's really interesting is about when we were writing the game, we didn't want it just to be, now here are the documentary clips, now here's the science bit, because obviously we interviewed Karen Berger, Martin Morazzo, Christopher Cantwell, they're all featuring that as well. So they talk about what's going on in the comic and how it links back to everybody else's experiences in the documentaries as well. But we really wanted the clues in terms of how you solve that level to be part of the documentary. So it wasn't just a little add-on. So when you watch, you cannot actually solve that level. Well, maybe you can, but it'd be hard to solve that level without watching the documentaries and getting the bits, the clues that then help you to go back into the game and solve it. And we have things like, because the material where you have the lived experience is quite it's very moving, and a lot of it's quite hard to watch. It's quite people are telling you about these extreme experiences. We try and have this sort of areas outside the documentaries that are kind of a bit more lighthearted. So your narrator is like a streamer. So you walk into the game and the narrating voice is somebody who's streaming and going, I've got my snacks. Are you ready, everybody? Let's go. And she has kind of quite a light tone to her voice, and you kind of have to figure out her character versus the character who is the flat who you're going into in the game. And another area you sit in is called the reassuring beanbag. So you sit on this beanbag and it takes you to this beautiful lake, and it gives you loads of tips and clues about how to solve the puzzle in the game if you're getting a bit stuck. And so I think, and what Kiana does, I think really, really well, was we didn't want the flat to feel too oppressive. We wanted it to feel like, a young woman's flat that was, had a lot of joy to it, with the music, with Toya DeLazy composing it. It does change. We change it up. And Kiana, you can talk a bit more about that challenge. I kind of...
So like at the beginning, like the level is very colorful, and it does feel like a place that you want to live there, and it's quite relatable. It's messy, it feels like someone lives there. And like as you play the game and there are more loops, like towards the end, like kind of lose the colors, and it feels like it kind of, the flat is suffocating you, isn't it? Like you feel like you're stuck and you're trying to get out. So that's what I try to make, like in the last loop, that we have no colors. I'm sorry. And there's kind of like a fog and you're trying to get out of it.
And that's to kind of mirror the experience that people that live with this have, right? Like you want to give someone a sense if they're not familiar. Obviously, it's not the same as somebody actually living with it. But also, I think, Kiana, it's also telling a story, right? Like so often, obviously, comics tell a story, video games as well. Now, they're a great source of entertainment, and you can take your character on a journey as well. So that's something you were cognizant of, and that's what kind of feeds into this changing of aesthetic with the flat specifically.
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Having the colors change and having the flat feel more suffocating, that's about taking the character on a journey to really see what they're going through as they deal with this disease. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's quite accurate, because I think like people with OCD, it's very difficult for them to get out of this loop. All this thought that's in their head, and they think that they can't get out, and that's basically how I wanted the player feel as well. Feel that how they kind of feel that they're stuck and they need to get out of this.
Yeah, and I guess it goes back to what I was saying earlier about deciding to do an escape game. As we're talking about it, I guess it becomes kind of obvious why you do an escape game, right? Because people that are in those loops, people that suffer from this disease, they can feel trapped, and all you want to do is, escape from your own thoughts. And unfortunately, some of them, they want to escape from their whole entire body or life itself, which is just, horrible. So I think that also speaks to the value of doing it documentary style, where, it's not just scientists and therapists and what have you talking about their experiences and how they help people deal with this, but you have, real life people that are living with this disease and just being incredibly vulnerable, talking about the things that they've been through, which I think is very powerful. So let me ask you, Sara, when you were recruiting these people, were they reluctant at first? Were they excited to talk about this? Like, give us some background on some of the people that are living with this that have become a part of this game.
Yeah, so we work with OCD Action, a charity in the UK, who also helped us to connect up with people who live with OCD. And quite early on, I met our co-producer, Morazzo, who was studying a master's at the time, and she was really interested in filmmaking. So we were having conversations about her being interviewed, and I said to her, well, why don't you direct some of the films? Because I think there are moments in this work where you have to know when to step aside and get out of the way, right? And who would be more brilliant at asking the right questions than somebody who actually lives with OCD? So she came, I sort of tried to stand back and let her ask the questions and just kind of intervene and add some extra stuff. But so we kind of worked together on that interview process, and then I applied to Joseph Rowntree Foundation to get a bit more money to evolve her a bit more, which was brilliant because we got the funding and she was able to really come on board and read the scripts, and we had a whole team of lived experience who would read the scripts. They would test the game, they would give us all notes on what they liked, where we could tweak things, and the game would not be the same without their involvement. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Like, I have intrusive thoughts, but I do not, like everybody else, but I do not live with OCD. I don't know what it's like to be stuck in that mindset all the time. And obviously we had the comic as a reference and Chris's experience, which was brilliant, but that testing of the game and with the documentary clips and the narration and making sure that we express it in an authentic way just made the biggest difference. And Marae did an amazing job, sort of, because she's so passionate about it and she wants to create change. When we did all the work around sort of the goals that we're going to be working with policymakers to try and influence change, her viewpoint was really, really vital. And even the little notes, so we have like loads of little notes and things that you pick up in the game and you look at, and we have these knitted birds that are a metaphor for her state of mind, like just even going over how we express the notes and stuff. And she's like, oh, maybe that's, she would just help us tweet stuff. And And I think one of the things that I hope comes across in the documentaries is, you know, a lot of the people we work with, they experience bouts of depression, but they're really lively, energetic, smart. You know, they're artists, they're activists, they're writers, they're storytellers. They've got these amazing lives and they do this amazing work, and it's something that ebbs and flows in their life. It ebbs and flows. And so it doesn't define them, but it does at moments in their life kind of cause this devastation. And I hope that comes across in the films, that they're amazing characters. And we have this amazing professor from Oxford University who works with lived experience. He says they're some of the nicest people I know, because their thoughts are the fear of the worst thing happening. So if you can imagine the most taboo or horrible, or it's almost like the opposite of what you want to happen, and that sort of pummeling your brain continuously is kind of, you know, I think they're really strong people to kind of, you know, go through that, come out the other end, and you know, the resilience they have to show. So that involving the lived experience was really vital part of this. It wouldn't be the same without it. So.
Yeah, I think, you know, I know Christopher, he's a friend, a perfect example of what you're saying, just a brilliant, creative mind, just the nicest guy in the world. But, you know, at times there, you know, is this horrible thing that he has to deal with. And, you know, just such a strong person, and all of them, you know, such strong people to get through this and, you know, still be here and still be such great people and nice and what have you. So let me ask you, Kiana, Sara's talking about having feedback and notes from people that have lived with this. When those notes were brought to the development team, was it kind of like, oh, why didn't we think of that? And pretty easy to implement the ideas they had?
I think we were quite open to these changes, because none of us got OCD that we worked on it apart from Morazzo, and she joined quite later on, didn't she? So Sara was checking like basically everything with all the professors and people who have OCD to make sure that we use the right information. And yeah, no, we were open to it. Like we had to change some of the text, like in the notebooks that are around the flat.
And you feel like it's a better game for having their feedback?
Oh, definitely. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Like I spoke to someone who played the game, and she has OCD, and she was saying like the color purple that we have in the corridor it's like a very calming color for people who have OCD. So we're like, okay, that's really good that we kind of tick these boxes, and
Yeah.
we made sure that we're not doing something that is unrelated. Also, like the flat that is quite messy, you know, like her room that is quite messy, and like often when you hear people who has OCD, we think like, oh, they're very clean and they're neat freak, and but that's not the case for everyone. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, so interesting. Well, the game is actually released now. It's out there. People can play it. Sarah, why don't you let everybody know where they can go to check it out?
Yeah, so it's available on Steam gaming platforms. So if you've never played games on Steam, you really should, because there's amazing material on there. So it's for PC, Mac or PC. So you can just download Steam gaming platform. It's free. You log in, sign a create account, just type in She Could Fly, and it'll come up as a documentary escape game. If you don't want to buy it straight away, just wishlist it. It's £4.99, $5.99, and then every other is sort of adjusted for all the other regions. We're also available on Humble Store, so you can download from there as well. And yeah, keep your eyes peeled for sales in the future. So if you want to just wish list it for now, that's fine, and then you can get it that way. And we will be rolling it out to sort of educational establishments and to sort of hopefully for various medical schools and science engagement schools. So that one of the key things is, I guess, is just, you know, working with our medical advisors and medical profession to help people gain a better understanding. It's the longest mental health problem to diagnose in the UK. The UK, the average time is 7 years, which is pretty terrible, and it's one of the mental health illnesses that impacts children. So a lot of kids, it manifests at 7 or 8 years old, so quite young. which is kind of, and often it's sort of later teens for other stuff. So it's kind of really important that GPs and doctors and nurses and mental health professionals sort of understand and recognise what it is and what it isn't, so that it can be sort of diagnosed at an early age. Also, people playing the game. We have had, when we were testing at Thought Bubble, somebody realised, an artist played and realised that her son had OCD, and we've had somebody else who played it and then realised that what they've been experiencing is actually OCD. So for people who might have moments like that when they're playing it, we've got extra resources that you can click on to learn more about the condition. So wherever you are, there's an International OCD Foundation as well as OCD Action, which has amazing information on their website. So I think that's really important because it's so difficult when and undiagnosed, that if people sort of think that they might have it, that there's materials there to take it.
I mean, again, it's such a debilitating disease at times, and you can't get help if you don't know that don't realize, if you've lived with it all your life, you don't know any different.
Absolutely.
But, hey, there's therapies you can try that can help. There's some medications you can try that will kind of level out the peaks and valleys, if you will. So the game's been out for a little while. How's the reception been so far? Have you had any feedback?
Yeah, we've had some really great reviews. It's only been out a week and a half, about a week and a half. But what has been really fun has been watching Twitch players play along to it. So we really hope, because we've got this stream of voice, so you've had people play along, and like they'll be saying things like, "Oh, that's what I would have said," or "I sound like that," and it's been really fun to sort of watch the reception and people engage with it over a long periods of time. It's a 90-minute game, so it's actually a relatively short game, but people have sort of sat and played it and discussed it with their audiences, and that's exactly what we wanted people to do, to kind of play along in groups and have conversations, and so to see that, it's been really, really great. And yeah, we've got some good views. A long way to go. I mean, God, 40 games a day are released on Steam apparently. Yeah. It's quite an audience to break into. So this is the start of our journey of getting the game out there and getting people to play it. But
yeah, definitely a marathon and such a worthwhile project. So that's amazing. So yeah, definitely everybody go and check it out on Steam. Last question here as we're winding down, ladies. This idea of not only the She Could Fly game that exists, but if people discover that, hopefully they discover the comic. There's 2 volumes. And then a 3rd volume that's all in one graphic novel. But you can get all 3 as collected editions. And it really is it's such an entertaining story and a fun story beyond, a way for Chris to kind of process his OCD and get out there. And again, it was his first comic project. He's gone on to do huge characters like Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom and all that. And you mentioned him being involved. When you first approached him and throughout this process, was he just like over the moon that really feeling like this was a worthwhile project and it was going to help people? Knowing Chris, I got to imagine he was just so excited.
Yeah, he was super generous about sort of allowing us to play with, with his story world. And he, we were sort of at the early days just really developing it, and he let us get on with it. And I'd worked with Karen Berger before on a comic I'd written. So, that I approached through Karen. And I guess because I'd worked with Karen before, she had a trust that we would do something authentic with it and be careful with the characters and be careful with the art and how we represented. And so, yeah, they were all completely, really enthusiastic. And I was kind of really grateful that they trusted us to kind of, work with their comic in that way. But it was, it was really amazing sort of having the opportunity to sort of take their visuals. And we've got the comic pages in. The comic pages are ripped up and scattered around the flat, and you have to put it back together, and then you get to see the comic pages, and the documentaries are kind of embedded in those. And so, that it was a real joy selecting the pages and kind of just keeping them updated with where we were with things. I mean, he's obviously doing amazing other massive comics and epic TV stuff. So, his involvement was as much as sort of doing the documentary interviews, and just we kept him in the loop to make sure they were happy with the direction we're going in. And so, yeah, it worked out really well.
Yeah, when I mentioned something I was going to have you on to talk about it, he was like, "Oh, that's so great! Spread the word," because again, this is something that can really help people, like you mentioned, if they're undiagnosed, or again, just to combat that misinformation misconceptions of what OCD is, I think is just really important. I mean, mental health in general, which I don't have to tell you, Sarah, it's just, there's still a stigma. There's still this idea, culturally in America, especially for males, you can't admit, that's weakness or what have you. The whole idea of, men can't cry, or you can't admit that there's something wrong with you. And it's gotten better, don't get me wrong, but oh my God, we still have such a long way to go.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's such a shame because of, the more we understand about how the body works, the more we understand that mental health has an impact on physical health and vice versa. And so the idea of separating the two is kind of a bit of a nonsense, really. And we should be thinking more holistically about, staying well. And you're absolutely right. There's certain groups of people, that are able to kind of talk about their mental health more openly than others. And I think it's kind of breaking down those barriers and enabling people from different cultures and different walks of life to feel more comfortable about talking about it. Because we're all very different at the end of the day. We all deal with different things and cope with different things in different ways. So being able to be open about that, I think, is really important.
Yeah, well, having things like this, it's, video games have become so mainstream. So that's why I think it's such a great project, right? Like the more that we see things like this out in the world, out in the mainstream, the more we're able to talk about it. Hey, mental health issues are a thing. It doesn't mean you're any worse or better than anybody else. It's just your particular challenge, right? Everybody has their story. Everybody has their baggage. Everybody has their stuff they deal with. If yours happens to be OCD, then hey, that's okay. It doesn't mean you're any less. Your worth is no more or less than anyone else. So let's start the conversation. At the end of the day, that's what we need to do.
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, ladies, it's been a real pleasure. Again, everybody, you can go check out the game on Steam. Very inexpensive, a lot of value to it. And if you haven't read the comic, highly recommend that as well. So, again, ladies, best of luck. Marathon, not a sprint.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure this game will be out there for a long, long time, and hopefully it'll help a lot of people.
Yeah, I hope so.
Thank you.
And to all you audience members, we want to thank you as well. We really appreciate you joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.